This is a complicated one, and to complicate things further, it began as a song that was never even intended to be recorded for the public to hear. This is the story behind the Christmas hit, Baby It's Cold Outside.
Behind the Christmas hits with Drew Savage.
Baby It's Cold Outside was written by legendary songwriter Frank Loesser. I know the word legendary gets used a lot, but Frank wrote the music and lyrics for Broadway shows like Guys and Dolls and How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, so in this case, the word fits. Frank Loesser was born June 29, 1910 in New York City. Music ran in the family. His father Henry was a German-born piano teacher, and his older brother Arthur became a respected concert pianist. Arthur was a serious musician, and that's what Henry wanted Frank to become as well. But Frank wasn't interested in formal training. He was a bit of a rebel and rejected his father's desire to teach him piano. He was much more interested in writing witty and conversational lyrics. Years later, Frank's daughter, Susan, would tell NPR in the U.S. that her father, quote, certainly wanted to be different from the rest of his family. They were kind of snobbish. To them, popular music was really low class. Henry Loesser couldn't have been happy when Frank dropped out of City College of New York after just 1 year. He would joke later that he flunked everything but English and gym. Frank was just 15, but he was determined to make it his own way. His father, Henry, died unexpectedly 1 year later in 1926, and Frank suddenly started to take on more responsibility to help the family. His jobs included running a newspaper stand, selling classified ads for papers, writing some sketches for a vaudeville group, even becoming Knits Good editor for Women's Wear Daily, and a job as a press rep for a small movie company. He did all of this when he was still a teenager, but always with the dream of becoming a songwriter. Frank's first published work came at the age of 21, a song called In Love with the Memory of You. He sold several more songs in the early 1930s, none of them huge hits, but still good enough to get him more opportunity. In 1935, he was performing at a club on East 52nd Street called The Backdrop. That's where he'd meet aspiring singer Lynn Garland. And spoiler alert, she's about to become very important in this story. They fell in love, and Frank proposed that September to Lynn in a letter that included money for a train ticket to Los Angeles, where he was now working on contract to Universal Pictures. They were married in a judge's office. Frank's career began to take off after moving from Universal to Paramount. His song, I Don't Want to Walk Without You, from the 1942 film Sweater Girl, was a favorite of Irving Berlin's, who once told Loesser that it was the greatest song he had wished he had written. Loesser was established, working and socializing with other established names. In 1944, Frank and his wife Lynn were hosting a housewarming party, and Frank wrote a song for them to sing together at the end of the night as a cue for their guests to leave. That song was Baby It's Cold Outside. Lynn later wrote that after that first performance, they became instant parlor room stars. Quote, we got invited to all the best parties for years on the basis of Baby. It was our ticket to caviar and truffles. Parties were built around us being the closing act. Lynn wasn't kidding. She and Frank never recorded the song. The only way to hear it was to be there when Frank and Lynn sang it at the end of a private party. It was the talk of the town, and it was never meant to be anything but that, until Frank got an offer he couldn't refuse. MGM Studios offered to buy the song for their movie Neptune's Daughter, and Frank agreed. Lynn was furious. Quote, I felt as betrayed as if I had caught him in bed with another woman. This was their song, their thing, and now someone else was going to sing it in a movie? Actually, several someones. The song is sung twice in the movie, first by Ricardo Montalban, yes, Mr. Rourke from Fantasy Island, and Esther Williams. Later, it's sung by Betty Garrett and Red Skelton, with the roles reversed. The man wants to leave, and the woman wants him to stay. Williams once said filmmakers originally wanted to use another Frank Loesser song called I'd Like to Get You on a Slow Boat to China, but studio censors thought that one was too suggestive, so MGM made the offer to Loesser to buy Baby It's Cold Outside. The movie was a modest hit, but the song was a smash. What small groups at private parties loved about it translated perfectly to the big screen and helped solidify Esther Williams as a leading musical star for MGM. Baby It's Cold Outside would go on to win an Oscar for Best Original Song in 1950. Lynn eventually reconciled these feelings of betrayal and was proud that the song and the vibe that she and her husband created was recognized in such a significant way. In the years following its Oscar win, scores of other singers recorded their own version. Dean Martin and Marty McKay, Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Jordan, and later Michael Bublé and Idina Menzel and Lady Gaga and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who swapped roles just like Skelton and Garrett did in the original movie. For decades, it was a bona fide Christmas hit, even if it's not really a Christmas song at all. There are no Christmas references in the lyrics, and the movie, well, it came out in the summer. But it is a great winter song, and audiences reacted when radio stations started playing it around the holidays. As soon as Dean Martin included it in his 1959 Christmas album, A Winter Romance, it officially became a Christmas hit. However, the more time that passes, the more sensibilities, styles, and language change. What was a fun, flirty exchange in the 1940s no longer read that way to modern audiences. The line, "Say, what's in this drink?" and the persistent nature of the male character's persuasion was now viewed as coercion and undermining the idea of consent. It was largely a discussion point in the early 2000s, but in 2016, songwriters Josiah Lemansky and Lydia Liza became the first to make major changes to the lyrics before the Me Too movement began. In their version, the song begins with the lines, "I really can't stay. Baby, I'm fine with that. I've got to go away. Baby, I'm cool with that. What's in this drink remained, but the response was pomegranate LaCroix. With over 18 million streams on Spotify, it has its audience, but it didn't definitively reinvent the song. After the Harvey Weinstein case got global attention in 2017 and we started to have long overdue conversations about consent, a Cleveland radio DJ, Glenn Anderson, announced that his station, WDOK-FM, had removed Baby It's Cold Outside from its Christmas playlist. In his blog post, Anderson said the song no longer had a place. That decision also went global, and more radio stations followed suit. Frank and Lynn's daughter, Susan Losser, wasn't happy. Quote, "Bill Cosby ruined it for everybody." In an interview with NBC that winter, Losser went on to say that she did understand the criticisms and asserted her support for the Me Too movement. But she also asked people to consider the song's loving origins and historical context. "What's in this drink" was a flirty line once said with a smile and not a serious, concerned question. The female character does wonder what her parents will think of her if she stays, but never suggests that she herself doesn't want to stay. But two things can be true at the same time. A 70-year-old song was written without any negative intent and was perfectly suited for the norms of the day. And it can age poorly. If someone heard it for the first time today, it's perfectly reasonable for them to wonder, what is going on here? And it's probably unreasonable to expect people to Google the history of every song they bump up against. There have been others who have tried to reinterpret the song. John Legend and Natasha Rothwell took another pass at it that John recorded with Kelly Clarkson. That has over 38 million Spotify streams, which is a lot of streams, but it hasn't come close to becoming the definitive version. No one else has recorded it, and no other songwriter of note has tried to give reinvention another go. Maybe someone will try again, but is it ultimately going to work? Baby It's Cold Outside is very much a product of its time, and trying to modernize specific lyrics while keeping the rest of it intact may be a musical example of jamming a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't fit. Some recordings of the original lyrics have returned to radio station playlists after going away for 4 or 5 years. Will it stay that way? Or will it hit more bumps in the road as new generations discover the song? It does make the journey of Baby It's Cold Outside one of the more interesting Christmas hits to follow in the years to come. I'm Drew Savage. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Instagram at Drew Savage On Air. If you enjoyed this story, please leave us a rating and review. It helps other people like you find the podcast. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a story behind the Christmas hits.